After 12 crushing hours in the air, my body felt like it was made of damp sand, heavy, sluggish, and barely holding itself together. But none of that mattered. The moment the plane's doors opened and the cold Colorado air brushed against my face, a spark of excitement shot through me. I was finally here, finally going to surprise my son. For weeks, Evan had begged me not to stress myself with the long flight. "Mom, it's okay if you can't make it," he'd said gently over the phone. But I knew that tone. Soft, cautious, like he was preparing himself for disappointment. He'd never admit it, but he wanted me there. My son always tried to protect me from inconvenience, even if it meant sacrificing what he really felt. So I packed, boarded, and flew halfway across the world without telling him. Dragging my suitcase behind me, I headed straight for the boutique where the bride was having her final fitting. The taxi ride crawled through late afternoon traffic, every red light tugging at my patience. I checked my reflection obsessively, my hair frizzy from the flight, makeup barely clinging on, eyes swollen from the cramped seat. I looked exhausted, but happy, nervous, hopeful. When the taxi finally stopped in front of the boutique, I felt my heart thump like a teenager sneaking out past curfew. I imagined their faces when they saw me: Evan's stunned smile, Lena's warm hug, the bridesmaids cheering. I climbed the steps, lifted my hand toward the door, completely unaware that the moment I crossed that threshold, everything I believed about this wedding and my place in my son's life was about to shatter. The soft chime above the boutique door jingled as I stepped inside, the scent of pressed silk and fresh flowers washing over me. I paused, letting my eyes adjust to the warm lighting. Soft laughter floated from the fitting area in the back. Girlish, carefree, almost musical. I smiled. They sound happy. For a moment, the exhaustion melted, replaced by a flutter of anticipation. I took one step forward, then stopped. Lena's voice drifted through the curtain, sharper this time, laced with something biting. "Honestly, I don't know why she's even coming. Evan said she's clingy." Clingy. I froze. Another bridesmaid chimed in, snickering. "Didn't she give you that necklace last Christmas? The one that looked like it came from a bargain bin?" Lena laughed. Loud, unfiltered, cruel. "Oh, absolutely, and I swear Evan only invited her because he felt guilty. He knows how she gets." My breath caught in my throat. My hand slipped off the strap of my suitcase. It thudded dully against the wooden floor, but no one inside heard. They were too busy dissecting me like I wasn't a human being, like I was some embarrassing obligation they had to endure. Each word sliced deeper. Clingy. Cheap. Unwanted. My face burned, but the rest of my body went cold. I wrapped my arms around myself, as if that thin layer of fabric could shield me from their voices. I should have walked inside. I should have confronted them, but instead, I took a step back, then another, until I was outside again, trembling in the winter air. The door closed behind me with a soft click, gentle, almost polite, a sound far kinder than the people inside. And without saying a word to anyone, I slipped into the night, carrying a pain I never imagined feeling at my own son's wedding. Morning came far too quickly. I didn't remember falling asleep. One moment I was staring at the hotel ceiling, replaying their laughter on a loop, and the next I was waking up to sunlight slicing through the curtains like sharp, accusing blades. My eyes felt swollen, the skin beneath them hot and tender. I touched my face and winced. Proof that the night hadn't been a nightmare. It had been real. Every ugly word. For a long moment, I just sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wedding invitation lying on the nightstand. My name looked so elegant in gold foil. Ironic, considering how unwanted I now felt. Should I go? Should I walk into that ceremony smiling like nothing happened? Or should I protect myself and simply disappear? The idea of leaving twisted something deep in my chest. But the thought of facing Lena again, of pretending, made my stomach churn. Eventually, I forced myself to get dressed, moving like someone underwater. Each movement felt heavy, resistant, like my grief was pulling me down by the ankles. When I arrived at the venue, the air buzzed with pre-wedding excitement. Florists rushing around, guests greeting each other, soft music playing from hidden speakers. But beneath all that joy, something felt off. Evan kept glancing around nervously, checking his phone, pacing. Lena looked pale, her smile thin and brittle, like it might crack at any second. They avoided each other's eyes. They avoided my eyes. There was tension under their skin, an unspoken worry they were desperately trying to hide. For a moment, I wondered if they knew what I had overheard, but the truth was far more complicated, and I was still standing at the edge of a storm I didn't yet understand. I found Lena alone in a small prep room behind the venue, her wedding gown half-zipped as she adjusted the delicate lace sleeves with trembling fingers. She didn't notice me at first. Her shoulders were rising and falling too fast, as if each breath was a battle. "Lena," I whispered, unsure whether I was ready to face her or ready to walk away forever. She spun around so quickly her veil fluttered. The moment her eyes met mine, all the color drained from her face. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. It felt like standing across from a stranger who held a piece of my heart in her hands. "Margaret, I didn't know you came," she stammered, voice thin. "I didn't bother hiding the pain. I heard what you said yesterday." Her lips parted in horror. Then her knees wobbled, and she sank onto the vanity stool as if the weight of her guilt dragged her down. "Oh, God," she whispered, covering her mouth. You weren't supposed to hear that." "So you did mean it," I said. My voice shook, but I held her gaze. I needed the truth. No more uncertainty, no more guessing. She shook her head desperately. "No, Margaret, no. You don't understand." Her voice cracked as she spoke faster. "The woman I was talking about wasn't you." I frowned, confused. "Then who?" Lena swallowed hard, a visible tremor running through her fingers. "My mother." The room seemed to freeze. "Her mother?" She showed up again. Lena whispered, tears forming. "After disappearing for years, I vented about her. Not you, I swear it." The air around us shifted. Same pain, but a completely different direction. And for the first time, I realized the cruelty I overheard had come from wounds I didn't yet know existed. Lena's admission hung in the air like a storm cloud, heavy, sharp, and impossible to ignore. My heart pounded, a mixture of relief and a new, gnawing unease. I wanted to believe her, but the sting of yesterday's words still lingered, raw and pulsing. You did say a few things about me, didn't you?" I asked carefully, my voice low, trembling. "Even if your mother is the real target." Her eyes welled up, and for the first time I saw pure fear behind the facade of the perfect bride. She nodded slowly, swallowing like she was trying to hold back a flood. I did," she admitted, her voice breaking. "Not everything you heard, but some of it. I couldn't help myself. Evan always praises you, about everything you do. How wise you are, how strong. And her hands fisted the lace of her gown. "I was afraid I could never measure up. I thought if I didn't say it, I'd be invisible." Invisible. The word pierced me like glass. I wanted to reach out, to hug her, to somehow tell her that she wasn't invisible. Not to Evan, not to me. But my body was stiff with shock, my chest tight. "You were honest," I whispered finally, trying to keep anger from rising. "And afraid. I get that. But it hurt. It really hurt to hear it that way." Tears ran down her cheeks as she whispered, almost to herself. "I never wanted to hurt you. I just didn't know how to exist beside someone who has his heart so completely." I could see it then, the insecurities, the fear, the lonely ache beneath her smile. She wasn't a villain. She was just human, flawed, scared, desperate. And in that confession, the first threads of understanding and uneasy connection began to weave between us. Before I could gather my thoughts, the door creaked open, and Evan stepped inside. His usual calm demeanor was gone, replaced by a tightness around his jaw and a restless energy in his eyes. Something in his expression warned me. There was more I didn't know. "I need to tell you both something," he said, his voice low but insistent. "Something you weren't supposed to find out yet." I exchanged a wary glance with Lena. Her hands trembled, gripping the folds of her gown, a silent plea for me to stay calm. Evan ran a hand through his hair, pacing. This wedding, it almost didn't happen. My stomach lurched. Almost didn't happen? I repeated, my voice sharper than I intended. Yes. He stopped pacing and faced us, eyes haunted. Lena's mother, she showed up recently, tried to manipulate her, demand money, control the seating, the ceremony. She wanted to take over this day. His voice cracked slightly. It was blackmail. She threatened to ruin everything if she didn't get what she wanted. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. My chest tightened. Lena's mother? The very woman who had abandoned her for years? Lena's face fell, the color draining from her cheeks. I saw the old fear, the same fear that had fueled her harsh words about me, flash across her eyes again. Evan's hands trembled as he ran them through his hair. I didn't want you both to be dragged into this mess, but I can't hide it anymore. She almost destroyed the wedding, and I couldn't stop it alone. I swallowed hard, trying to process the revelation. The stakes were higher than I realized. The enemy wasn't just words and misunderstandings anymore. It was a real threat, lurking at the edge of their perfect day, ready to strike. And for the first time, I understood why tension clung so tightly to every corner of the morning. Even after Evan's revelation, the day pressed on, but the air was thick, like the calm before a storm. Guests arrived, chatting and laughing, but I could feel the undercurrent of something unseen, a tension threading through the room. Every smile seemed slightly forced, every greeting edged with caution. Then I noticed her. A woman in dark sunglasses lingered near the edge of the venue, half hidden behind a potted fern. She didn't belong. Her posture was too deliberate, too alert, like a predator sizing up its prey. I nudged Lena, whispering, "Do you see her?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. She shook her head slightly, fear flickering in her eyes. That same subtle panic she'd worn the day I overheard the boutique conversation, the one she had masked with polite laughter. Staff members murmured, pointing in hushed tones toward the corners of the hall. Guests glanced nervously, whispering names I didn't recognize. The woman's presence seemed to bend the air around her, sucking the warmth out of the room. Evan appeared from the back hallway, his face tight. He glanced toward her, and his jaw clenched. "She's been here," he said quietly, almost to himself. "Watching." I felt a shiver crawl up my spine. Lena's fingers gripped my arm instinctively, her wedding composure fraying in seconds. For the first time, the wedding felt less like a celebration and more like a battlefield. Old wounds, buried secrets, and unspoken fears were all converging under one roof. And somewhere in the shadows, the presence of someone dangerous was waiting, silently, deliberately, ready to strike at the worst possible moment. The ceremony was in full swing. Soft music floated over the perfectly arranged flowers, guests murmured polite greetings, and the scent of fresh roses mingled with the faint tang of expensive cologne. Everything looked flawless. Too flawless. Then she arrived. Lena's mother stormed through the double doors, sunglasses sliding down her nose, her designer handbag clutched like a weapon. Cameras flashed instinctively, capturing the shock on every face, the gasp that rippled through the room. "She's here," Lena whispered, her voice shaking. Margaret and I froze for a heartbeat, caught between disbelief and instinctive fury. The woman's eyes scanned the crowd, cold and calculating, as if the entire venue belonged to her. Every step she took drummed through the polished floor like a warning. "Mom!" Lena tried to block her path, but she brushed past effortlessly, her presence a storm tearing through the delicate calm. Guests murmured, whispers rising into frantic chatter. Security scrambled, but the woman seemed untouchable, moving with a deliberate arrogance that made the room shrink around her. Margaret and Lena finally stood side by side, shoulders squared, hearts pounding in unison. It was the first time in years they faced a threat together, their differences set aside for survival. "You won't ruin this day," Margaret said quietly, her voice low but firm, cutting through the chaos. The estranged mother sneered, lips curling. "We'll see about that." And in that instant, the elegant wedding became a battlefield. Words and stares like daggers, tension spiraling, everyone bracing for the inevitable clash. For the first time, I realized the wedding wasn't just about vows. It was about survival, loyalty, and proving whose strength would hold when everything threatened to fall apart. The chaos of the reception still echoed in my ears. The sharp clicks of cameras, the angry voices, the gasps of shocked guests. But now the storm had passed, leaving only a tense, trembling silence. Lena collapsed into a chair near the edge of the room, her veil crumpled around her shoulders, and for the first time, I saw her truly unguarded. Her hands shook as she wiped at her tears, and I felt a pang in my chest. This wasn't the confident bride from yesterday. This was a woman who had spent decades carrying fear, pain, and abandonment in her heart. I knelt beside her, careful not to startle her. "You're not alone," I whispered. "I know your mother, and I know what it's like to feel powerless. But you don't have to face her, or any of this, by yourself." Her eyes, wide and glistening, met mine. For the first time, I didn't see suspicion. I didn't see resentment. I saw relief. Fragile and desperate. I've spent so long thinking I had to protect myself, she admitted, voice barely audible. "I didn't trust anyone. I didn't even trust you." "You were scared," I said softly. "It's okay. I understand now. And I promise, from here on I'm not going anywhere." We sat together in silence for a moment, the tension in the room settling into a quiet understanding. Somewhere in the distance, music played softly, reminding us of the celebration we had nearly lost. In that fragile pause, I realized something profound. Fear and misunderstanding could crumble, but trust, even when earned slowly, could build something stronger than either of us had imagined. For the first time, Lena and I were no longer mother and potential rival. We were allies, standing together against whatever storms still awaited. By the time the reception began to wind down, the room had shifted from chaos to quiet warmth. Guests lingered, laughing softly, sharing stories and photos, but the real transformation was happening at the edges of the hall, where Lena and I had quietly remained together. I watched her laugh, genuine, unguarded, and realized how far she had come in just a few hours. The fear that had haunted her like a shadow was lifting, replaced by something new. Trust. "You've really been here for me," she admitted, voice small but steady. "Even when I didn't know I needed it." I smiled, feeling a weight lift from my chest. "I never wanted to compete with you, Lena. I wanted to protect you, and now I see I'm gaining a daughter, not losing a son." Evan appeared beside us, his eyes soft with relief. He didn't need words. His expression said everything. The wedding had survived, and the family had endured the storm together. Lena reached for my hand, tentative at first, then firm. "I don't have to be afraid anymore," she said. "Not of my mother, not of you, not of anything that kept me isolated for so long." I squeezed her hand in return, feeling the full depth of that moment. Years of misunderstanding, insecurity, and distance had melted away, replaced with connection, love, and newfound respect. As the night settled into a calm, I realized that a fractured wedding had become something far more profound. A beginning of trust, a family forged not by blood alone, but by courage, loyalty, and the choice to stand together. And in that quiet, glowing warmth, I finally understood. Sometimes the hardest storms bring the clearest skies, and the deepest wounds can open the way to the strongest bonds.